The Shepherd of Hermas, translated by J B Lightfoot. Part 12. Parable 9. After I had written down the commandments and parables of the shepherd, the angel of repentance came to me and saith to me, I wish to show thee all things that the Holy Spirit, which spake with thee in the form of the church, showed unto thee, for that Spirit is the Son of God. For when thou wast weaker in the flesh, it was not declared unto thee through an angel, but when thou wast enabled through the Spirit, and didst grow mighty in thy strength, so that thou couldst even see an angel, then at length was manifested unto thee through the church the building of the tower. In fair and seemly manner hast thou seen all things, instructed as it were by a virgin. But now thou seest, being instructed by an angel, though by the same Spirit. Yet must thou learn everything more accurately from me. For to this end also was I appointed by the glorious angel to dwell in thy house, that thou mightest see all things mightily, in nothing terrified, even as before. And he took me away into Arcadia, to a certain rounded mountain, and set me on the top of the mountain, and showed me a great plain, and round the plain 12 mountains, thus having each a different appearance. The first was black as soot, the second was bare, without vegetation, the third was thorny and full of briars. The fourth had the vegetation half withered, the upper part of the grass green, but the part by the roots withered, and some of the grass became withered whenever the sun had scorched it. The fifth mountain had green grass and was rugged. The sixth mountain was full with clefts throughout, some small and some great, and the clefts had vegetation, but the grass was not very luxuriant, but rather as if it had been withered. The seventh mountain had smiling vegetation, and the whole mountain was in a thriving condition, and cattle and birds of every kind did feed upon that mountain, and the more the cattle and the birds did feed, so much the more did the herbage of that mountain flourish. The eighth mountain was full of springs, and every kind of creature of the Lord did drink of the springs of that mountain. The ninth mountain had no water at all, and was entirely desert, and it had in it wild beasts and deadly reptiles which destroy mankind. The 10th mountain had very large trees, and was shady throughout, and beneath the shade lay sheep resting and feeding. The 11th mountain was thickly wooded all over, and the trees thereon were very productive, decked with divers kinds of fruit, so that one seeing them would desire to eat of their fruits. The 12th mountain was altogether white, and its aspect was cheerful, and the mountain was most beauteous in itself. And in the middle of the plain he showed me a great white rock rising up from the plain. The rock was loftier than the mountains, being foursquare, so that it could contain the whole world. Now this rock was ancient, and had a gate hewn out of it, but the gate seemed to me to have been hewed out quite recently, and the gate glistened beyond the brightness of the sun, so that I marveled at the brightness of the gate. And around the gate stood 12 virgins. The 4 then that stood at the corners seemed to me more glorious than the rest, but the others likewise were glorious. And they stood at the 4 quarters of the gate, and virgins stood in pairs between them. And they were clothed in linen tunics, and girt about in seemly fashion, having their right shoulders free, as if they intended to carry some burden. Thus were they prepared, for they were very cheerful and eager. After I had seen these things, I marveled in myself at the greatness and the glory of what I was seeing. And again I was perplexed concerning the virgins, that, delicate as they were, they stood up like men, as if they intended to carry the whole heaven. And the shepherd saith unto me, Why questionest thou within thyself, and art perplexed, and bringeth sadness on thyself? For whatsoever things thou canst not comprehend, attempt them not, if thou art prudent, but entreat the Lord, that thou mayest receive understanding to comprehend them. What is behind thee thou canst not see, but what is before thee thou beholdest. The things therefore which thou canst not see, let alone, and trouble not thyself about them. But the things which thou seest, these master, and be not over curious about the rest. But I will explain unto thee all things whatsoever I shall show thee. Have an eye, therefore, to what remaineth. I saw 6 men come, tall and glorious, and all alike in appearance, and they summoned a multitude of men. And the others also which came were tall men, and handsome and powerful. And the 6 men ordered them to build a tower above the gate. And there arose a great noise from those men who had come to build the tower, as they ran hither and thither around the gate. For the virgins standing round the gate told the men to hasten to build the tower. Now the virgins had spread out their hands as if they would take something from the men. And the 6 men ordered stones to come up from a certain deep place, and to go to the building of the tower. And there went up 10 stones, square and polished, not hewn from a quarry. And the 6 men called to the virgins, and ordered them to carry all the stones which should go unto the building of the tower, and to pass through the gate, and to hand them to the men that were about to build the tower. And the virgins laid the first 10 stones that rose out of the deep on each other, and they carried them together, stone by stone. And just as they stood together around the gate, in that order they carried them that seemed to be strong enough, and had stooped under the corners of the stone, while the others stooped at the sides of the stone. And so they carried all the stones, and they carried them right through the gate, as they were ordered, and handed them to the men for the tower. And these took the stones and builded. Now the building of the tower was upon the great rock, and above the gate. Those 10 stones then were joined together, and they covered the whole rock, and these formed a foundation for the building of the tower. And the rock and the gate supported the whole tower. And after the 10 stones, 25 other stones came up from the deep, and these were fitted into the building of the tower, being carried by the virgins, like the former. And after these 35 stones came up, and these likewise were fitted into the tower. And after these came up 40 other stones, and these all were put into the building of the tower. So 4 rows were made in the foundations of the tower. And the stones ceased coming up from the deep, and the builders likewise ceased for a little. And again the 6 men ordered the multitude of the people to bring in stones from the mountains for the building of the tower. They were brought in accordingly from all the mountains, of various colors, shaped by the men, and were handed to the virgins, and the virgins carried them right through the gate, and handed them in for the building of the tower. And when the various stones were placed in the building, they became all alike and white, and they lost their various colors. But some stones were handed in by the men for the building, and these did not become bright, but just as they were placed, such likewise they were found, for they were not handed in by the virgins, nor had they been carried in through the gate. These stones then were unsightly for the building of the tower. Then the 6 men, seeing the stones that were unsightly in the building, ordered them to be removed and carried below into their own place whence they were brought. And they say to the men who were bringing the stones in, abstain for your parts altogether from handing in stones for the building, but place them in by the tower, that the virgins may carry them through the gate and hand them in for the building. For if, say they be not carried in through the gate by the hands of these virgins, they cannot change their colors. Labor not, therefore, say they, in vain. And the building was finished on that day. Yet was not the tower finally completed, for it was to be carried up still higher, and there was a cessation in the building. And the 6 men ordered the builders to retire for a short time, all of them, and to rest. But the virgins they ordered not to retire from the tower. And methought the virgins were left to guard the tower. And after all had retired and rested, I say to the shepherd, How is it, sir, say I, that the building of the tower was not completed? The tower, he saith, cannot yet be finally completed, until its master come and test this building, that if any stones be found crumbling, he may change them, for the tower is being built according to his will. I would fain know, sir, say I, what is this building of this tower, and concerning the rock and gate, and the mountains, and the virgins, and the stones that came up from the deep and were not shaped, but went just as they were into the building. And why 10 stones were first placed in the foundations, then 25, then 35, then 40? And concerning the stones that had gone to the building and were removed again and put away in their own place. Concerning all these things, set my soul at rest, sir, and explain them to me. If, saith he, thou be not found possessed of an idle curiosity, thou shalt know all things. For after a few days we shall come here, and thou shalt see the sequel that overtaketh this tower, and shall understand all the parables accurately. And after a few days we came to the place where we had sat, and he saith to me, Let us go to the tower, for the owner of the tower cometh to inspect it. And we came to the tower, and there was no one at all by it, save the virgins alone. And the shepherd asked the virgins of the tower whether the master of the tower had arrived. And they said that he would be there directly to inspect the building. And behold, after a little while I see an array of many men coming, and in their midst a man of such lofty stature that he overtopped the tower. And the 6 men who superintended the building walked with him on the right hand and on the left, and all they that worked at the building were with him, and many other glorious attendants around him. And the virgins that watched the tower ran up, and they began to walk by his side round the tower. And that man inspected the building so carefully that he felt each single stone, and he held a rod in his hand and struck each single stone that was built in. And when he smote, some of the stones became as black as soot, others mildewed, others cracked, others broke off short, others became neither white nor black, others rough and not fitting in with the other stones, and others with many spots. These were the varied aspects of the stones which were found unsound for the building. So he ordered all these to be removed from the tower, and to be placed by the side of the tower, and other stones to be brought and put into their place. And the builders asked him from what mountain he desired stones to be brought and put into their place. And he would not have them brought from the mountains, but ordered them to be brought from a certain plain that was nigh at hand. And the plain was dug, and stones were found there bright and square, but some of them too were round. And all of the stones which there were anywhere in that plain were brought every one of them, and were carried through the gate by the virgins. And the square stones were hewed, and set in the place of those which had been removed, but the round ones were not placed in the building, because they were too hard to be shaped, and to work on them was slow. So they were placed by the side of the tower, as though they were intended to be shaped and placed in the building, for they were very bright. So then, having accomplished these things, the glorious man who was Lord of the whole tower called the shepherd to him, and delivered unto him all the stones which lay by the side of the tower, which were cast out from the building, and saith unto him, Clean these stones carefully, and set them in the building of the tower, these I mean, which can fit with the rest. But those which will not fit, throw far away from the tower. Having given these orders to the shepherd, he departed from the tower with all those with whom he had come, and the virgins stood round the tower, watching it. I say to the shepherd, How can these stones go again to the building of the tower, seeing that they have been disapproved? He saith unto me in answer, Seest thou, saith he, these stones? I see them, sir, say I. I myself, saith he, will shape the greater part of these stones, and put them into the building, and they shall fit in with the remaining stones. How, sir, say I, can they, when they are chiseled, fill the same space? He saith unto me in answer, As many as shall be found small shall be put into the middle of the building, but as many as are larger shall be placed nearer the outside, and they will bind them together. With these words he saith to me, Let us go away, and after 2 days let us come and clean these stones, and put them into the building. For all things round the tower must be made clean, lest perhaps the master come suddenly, and find the circuit of the tower dirty, and he be wroth, and so these stones shall not go to the building of the tower, and I shall appear to be careless in my master's sight. And after 2 days we came to the tower, and he saith unto me, Let us inspect all the stones, and see those which can go to the building. I say to him, Sir, let us inspect them. And so commencing, first we began to inspect the black stones, and just as they were when set aside from the building, such also they were found. And the shepherd ordered them to be removed from the tower, and to be put on one side. Then he inspected those that were mildewed, and he took and shaped many of them, and ordered the virgins to take them up and put them into the building. And the virgins took them up and placed them in the building of the tower, in a middle position. But the rest he ordered to be placed with the black ones, for these also were found black. Then he began to inspect those that had the cracks, and of these he shaped many, and he ordered them to be carried away by the hands of the virgins for the building. And they were placed towards the outside, because they were found to be sounder. But the rest could not be shaped, owing to the number of the cracks. For this reason, therefore, they were cast aside from the building of the tower. Then he proceeded to inspect the stunted stones, and many among them were found black, and some had contracted great cracks, and he ordered these also to be placed with those that had been cast aside. But those of them which remained he cleaned and shaped, and ordered to be placed in the building. So the virgins took them up, and fitted them into the middle of the building of the tower, for they were somewhat weak. Then he began to inspect those that were half white and half black, and many of them were now found black, and he ordered these also to be taken up with those that had been cast aside. But the rest were found white, and were taken up by the virgins, for being white, they were fitted by the virgins themselves into the building. But they were placed towards the outside, because they were found sound, so that they could hold together those that were placed in the middle, for not a single one of them was too short. Then he began to inspect the hard and rough, and a few of them were cast away, because they could not be shaped, for they were found very hard. But the rest of them were shaped, and taken up by the virgins, and fitted into the middle of the building of the tower, for they were somewhat weak. Then he proceeded to inspect those that had spots, and of these some few had turned black, and were cast away among the rest. But the remainder were found bright and sound, and these were fitted by the virgins into the building, but they were placed towards the outside, owing to their strength. Then he came to inspect the white and round stones, and he saith unto me, What shall we do with these stones? How do I know, sir? say I. And he saith to me, Perceivest thou nothing concerning them? Sir, say I do not possess this art, neither am I a mason, nor can I understand. Seest thou not, saith he, that they are very round, and if I wish to make them square, very much must needs be chiselled off from them? Yet some of them must of necessity be placed into the building. If then, sir, say I, it must needs be so, why distress thyself, and why not choose out for the building those thou willest, and fit them into it? He chose out from them the large and the bright ones, and shaped them, and the virgins took them up, and fitted them into the outer parts of the building. But the rest which remained over were taken up, and put aside into the plain whence they were brought. They were not, however, cast away. Because, saith he, there remaineth still a little of the tower to be builded, and the master of the tower is exceedingly anxious that these stones be fitted into the building, for they are very bright. So 12 women were called, most beautiful in form, clad in black, girded about, and having the shoulders bare, with their hair hanging loose. And these women, methought, had a savage look. And the shepherd ordered them to take up the stones which had been cast away from the building, and carry them off to the same mountains from which also they had been brought. And they took them up joyfully, and carried away all the stones, and put them in the place whence they had been taken. And after all the stones had been taken up, and not a single stone still lay round the tower, the shepherd saith unto me, Let us go round the tower, and see that there is no defect in it. And I proceeded to go round it with him. And when the shepherd saw that the tower was very comely in the building, he was exceedingly glad, for the tower was so well builded that when I saw it, I coveted the building of it. For it was builded, as it were, of one stone, having one fitting in it, and the stonework appeared as if hewn out of the rock, for it seemed to me to be all a single stone. And I, as I walked with him, was glad to see so brave a sight. And the shepherd saith to me, Go, and bring plaster and fine clay, that I may fill up the shapes of the stones that have been taken up and put into the building, for all the circuit of the tower must be made smooth. And I did as he bade, and brought them to him. Assist me, saith he, and the work will speedily be accomplished. So he filled in the shapes of the stones which had gone to the building, and ordered the circuit of the tower to be swept and made clean. And the virgins took brooms and swept, and they removed all the rubbish from the tower, and sprinkled water, and the sight of the tower was made cheerful and very seemly. The shepherd saith unto me, All, saith he, hath now been cleaned. If the Lord come to inspect the tower, he hath nothing for which to blame us. Saying this, he desired to go away. But I caught hold of his wallet, and began to adjure him by the Lord that he would explain to me all that he had showed me. He saith to me, I am busy for a little while, and then I will explain everything to thee. Await me here till I come. I say to him, Sir, when I am here alone, what shall I do? Thou art not alone, saith he, for these virgins are here with thee. Commend me them to them, say I. The shepherd calleth them to him, and saith to them, I commend this man to you till I come. And he departed. End of Part 12.